Hello there everybody, it's Sally here and welcome to Tuesday Teaching Tips. And you can see today I have got an icon, a landmark of London skyline, which is a GPO telephone box. You don't see that many of them these days. But I saw this in one of another landmark shop, which is Marks and Spencer's over here in the UK, and it's got Big Ben and it's got the Shard, which is an enormous building in London, the highest one in Europe. We've got the Wheel as well, and I'll come back to that in a minute. I'll just leave my telephone box up there. I don't know whether you've ever thought about the fact that it's strange we spend so much time in early lessons teaching notation. Many of the tutor books are based on the teaching of notation. In fact, if you look at them, so many are about learning notation, not so much about learning the piano, but learning to decipher notation. And yet, especially over here in the UK, when it comes to exams and things, sight reading proves a real problem for a lot of students, and they really, really struggle. And I think there's a little bit of a mismatch there. And I'm thinking generally about sight reading this week anyhow, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment as well. But I think one of the things we need to be doing with notation is to make sure that our students are able to look at a note and to know instantly, automatically, what that note is. Now, I don't know whether you use mnemonics like Every Green Bus Drives Fast. Well, actually, Every Green Bus Drives Fast, it's not a very fast way of notation reading, to be honest, because I don't know about you, but what I find is what we want is that instant recognition of notes, but instead pupils end up going E, G, B, D. Oh, that's a D. That's a long process. That's taken at least 6 seconds, and that's not instant recognition. So I'm going to put Every Green Bus Drives Fast to one side, because for me that is not a successful way to introduce notation. You might use it later, but it's not a successful way to introduce notation. Back to my landmark, because what I use are landmark notes, or some people call them guide notes. And landmark notes are notes, specific notes, that I introduce to the pupils really early on in their notation reading, so that they begin to recognise those specific notes. So the 3 initial landmark notes for me would be treble G, which is this one. Can we see this in the light? Not quite. Treble G, there we go, treble G. And also, of course, middle C, there's middle C. And bass F, here's bass F. There are other ones you could introduce. You could introduce bass C, and notice how they've all got a specific name, because of course they all live in specific places. And then of course we've got a different way of writing middle C, and you could also have treble C. But the first 3 would be bass F, treble G and middle C in both hands. And I would work with the student on that persistently and consistently over a number of weeks to get them really good at just looking at that and knowing how it's a treble G and where treble G lives on the piano. And I would also ask them after a couple of weeks to explain to me how they know that it's treble G. You know, what are the signs that tell them there? And you'll find that if you start to use this, it will lead to much, much better notation reading, because this is just the start, because from that they begin to read the shapes and the patterns, and eventually you sort of infill with all the particular letter names. It's a long process, but as long as we keep moving forward with it, being persistent and consistent, it will fall into place, I promise you, a lot easier than Every Green Bus Drives Fast. That's probably a project for your summer holidays for you to think about, because there's a lot in there, and have a look at your tutor books to see what approach they particularly use. So 2 things then. First of all, as I said, I've been working a lot on sight reading recently, and I'm delighted that I've been working along with the ABRSM over here, and we've just released a sight reading app called Sight Reader Trainer. And I'm going to be live on the ABRSM Facebook page tomorrow at 11 AM British Summer Time with Chief Examiner John Holmes, and we're going to be discussing sight reading in all its permutations. So do come along and join me then. The second thing I've already told you actually, because I mentioned all about my landmark note. One other thing, you know, why do I like things like this? Because it makes it memorable. I want landmark notes to stand out for pupils. So if it means I have to teach it standing on one leg, or if it means I have to teach it with a shortbread tin, which is what it was originally, to my hand, then I will do. As long as that pupil leaves the lesson knowing what landmark notes are and where they live, I'll be happy. Thank you all so much for watching. See you soon. Bye bye for now.